What's up? This is Tom Froming from TwinsDaily.com, and today we're going to talk about the 2020 Twins payroll and the Nelson Cruz decision. Nelson Cruz hitting the open market, still out there. It's been a slow offseason, still a lot to talk about since not many guys have signed. Before we get into it, let me know in the comments what you think the Twins' kind of target area of their payroll should be. A lot is up in the air given the uncertainty. And also whether or not Nelson Cruz, if they should go out of their way to bring him back, or if it's a kind of a deal where it's got to make sense for the club. Those were two topics of discussion in the many live streams that have taken place on this channel over the offseason. I'm going to put a link to a playlist down in the description of this video where you can access those live streams. Several hours worth of content for you to dig through if you're a Twins fan, just hungry for Twins news. But let's first get into that payroll topic. That was the opening topic of the Twins Offseason Live series. Here, John Bonus of Twins Daily talks about what is going down this offseason in terms of Twins needs and payroll.
If you take a look at the Twins payroll, there's 6 big decisions they've got to kind of come to, right? The first one is going to be how much their payroll is going to be this year. We're going to talk a little bit about that, the challenges around that this year given the pandemic. Then they also are going to have spots and questions about at the DH spot, left field, starting pitcher, closer, and then a utility player. You know, in a good year, you will expect the payroll to go up 10 to 15%. That's the way it goes across Major League Baseball. In a down year, it might be cut back a little bit as they become less competitive. Here is the payroll numbers that they've been for the last 3 years. This year's payroll is supposed to be $138 million. It was prorated to $49 million, meaning that because they only played 60 games this season, they only had to pay the players 60 out of 162 games, and they only had to spend $49 million in payroll. However, the question is, what kind of payroll level would make sense for 2021? The answers could be all over the place, right? We would normally expect about a 10% increase, which would put the Twins at about $150 million. Right? Even if they were just staying even, we'd expect something like $138 million. But this is a pandemic year, and this upcoming year, we don't know whether or not there's going to be any fans in the stadium and what Major League Baseball is going to do about that across the board. In general, what we are hearing is they expect some sort of reduced payroll across Major League Baseball due to the questions that they have about revenue. Now, is that 10% or is that 20%? We don't know. But if they don't get any revenue at all from fans, which is a good 30% of most clubs' payroll overall, or revenues overall, something like that, and they still have to pay all of the players for all of the games. That is, they don't cut back like they did this year to a prorated schedule, which I think is going to be tougher to do. Well, then you're talking about 30% less revenue. Your player costs are 50% of everything else. And now it becomes a question of, well, how much do we want to lose? And so, the rock bottom, I think for the Twins is about $90 million. Now that's, I think, really aggressive. And I think that's the reason I'm willing to go that low is because at that point you start making really stupid decisions regarding your payroll, right? After that point, you're just making decisions that are dumb, where you're clearly getting rid of players that are worth far more than what they're getting paid, right? But up till that point, you don't really.
So there it was. That's where everything has to start when you're kind of assessing what is going on in the offseason, how much money is there to spend, what are the needs that need to fill. So check that full episode out if you have time. I'll put a link up in a card here. Also, another big discussion right now is Nelson Cruz. Is he going to be back? How much are the Twins going to be willing to pay him? How many years are the Twins willing to offer him? That was a big discussion on the Twins free agent live stream. If you missed that one, again, more links in the description of that. But let's check out what some of the guys had to say about Nelson Cruz's future on the Twins.
I don't think it's not the worst thing either. Another thing that I think is a big or would be a benefit of having an open DH spot would be to be able to cycle guys through and give guys days off. We've seen the last 2 years we've headed into the postseason with injuries up and down the roster, where if you did have an open DH spot, you could sign somebody to fill that in, or you could use that to cycle in Miguel Sano, Josh Donaldson, Max Kepler, give them days off in the field, let them still hit and take advantage of their bats and potentially keep some health going into the season. So given the money and given just the DH spot that is pretty, replaceable in its own right with being able to play platoons and things like that, I think you could get close-ish. I think there's just too many reasons to part with him as much as we all love him. And I'm sure it's not a popular opinion of Twins fans, but that's kind of where I've landed.
I'm with you, man. In terms of roster flexibility, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to have a completely dedicated designated hitter who cannot play the field.
On one hand, Nelson Cruz, as Joe Mauer was the identity of the Minnesota Twins for so many years, you could arguably say that Nelson Cruz has been the identity of the Minnesota Twins these past couple of years. Not just numbers-wise, but as a clubhouse guy. There's nobody on that Twins team that has seen more than Nelson Cruz, and he's just a good guy. But I also see the side of, he is just a DH, and he's 40 plus years old. And there's options like Michael Brantley and like George Springer on the market potentially. And those are guys who, potentially could play in the field as well. And as much as I love Nelson Cruz, and if he's wearing a Twins uniform next year, awesome. But I think it's going to come down to money. And I think that there's other options out there that are more versatile.
Yeah. Matthew, what's your threshold that you're not going to go past to bring back Nelson Cruz?
Yeah, so one threshold for me that's kind of the hard line is just the 1 year. I do not want to commit 2 years to a 41-year-old hitter.
Again, if you like that, there's a lot more where that came from. And I'm going to leave you with this right here. This is a playlist to all of the Twins Offseason live streams. And down here is a playlist to all of Seth's interviews that he's recorded on this channel as well. Check those out. Again, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking this out. Please subscribe.